Um, Since I'm not in the room, well, when we're ready, I'll start recording, and then I'd like to just go around the room and take attendance because I can't really read the nameplates there and everything.
Annie Beck will be joining virtually, and I think she was the only one that emailed me saying she had a
Hey, Tony,
change.
I'm not sure if you got my email yet, but I get a conflict at 9, so I'll stay as long as I can.
Yeah, that's fine, John. Thanks for
Thanks.
joining.
David should be here. David should be on this one. He'll be on this one.
I think we're just missing David Keith, and then we can get started. All right, Tony, this is Ashley. David Keith is here, so everyone is in attendance except for Annie Beck, who should be joining virtually, but she is the only person that is not here.
So everyone except Annie Beck.
Yep, and she should be joining virtually.
Bill Helm not attending.
He's here. Actually, all three of our select
Oh,
board
he is?
members are here.
All right.
Yeah.
Hi, Bill.
Morning,
And
Tony.
Bob is not.
And Kim is here as well, and Janet and Bibi.
Janet?
Janet Kidder, one of our select board members.
Oh, all right.
Perfect. Do you want me to kick us off, Tony, or did you want to do that?
Let me do that in 1 second. It says starting recording and okay, here we go. Good morning. Welcome to the June 28th meeting of the Police Facility Advisory Committee meeting. Thank you all for attending. We will be recording audio and video of this meeting for later use and distribution by the community. And we're going to start today with a couple of documents being reviewed by the facility committee. And then we'll run through just the update of the meeting minutes near the end of the meeting. And you can take it away, Ashley.
Perfect. Thanks, Tony. To start, wanted to hand the microphone over to Chief Cobb to see if there are any current updates on the police facility as it stands today. I want to give her the opportunity in every meeting, if there are any updates that are worth noting, that she has the opportunity to do so. I imagine there will be some, and there are times where there won't be some. I wanted to hand it over to her in the event that there are.
Thank you. Now that summer is here and day camps and things are in full swing, it's pretty much on a daily basis that we experience foot traffic in our driveway from various people. Just the other day, I had to wait for a group of people with several young children to take them out of the stroller. They were in my parking spot at the PD, so I had to wait for them to get the kids out of it, get them situated so that they could go and use the town green. But again, it just kind of highlights the difficulties of having not only a shared driveway with a residential home, but one that is really used as a sidewalk in a lot of ways. It's just not safe That's the long and the short of it. But as far as the facility itself, we are still experiencing some difficulties with our locker room plumbing, the toilets and the showers. So it does clog on a fairly regular basis, and then we have air bubbles that come up through the toilets. There's been a lot of work that's already been done. The town has brought in Roto-Rooter to try and remedy some of that, but we still experience issues. So it's at the point now where if we experience a clog or other plumbing-related issue, we are not to do anything with it. We're going to have Roto-Rooter come in, and that could definitely take our bathrooms out of service for an unknown length of time. So that's really the update we have currently.
It's a really stinky situation. I apologize for that. Tony, and just wanted to see if there were any updates on how La Valley Brunsinger is progressing with the program. I know that Chief Cobb has been working through the questionnaire, but just wanted to see if there are any updates on the program as it's being created.
So we met after our last meeting with Chief, walked through the space. We had a follow-up programming discussion, review of the questionnaires provided by John and Bob. Those documents were issued to the chief, and she's going through providing all that information. John Adams followed up yesterday with a document in Word version that will be a little bit more helpful and efficient in allowing the chief to make those edits. That program will then go to LBA, and they'll do a comparison of that document against the previous studies, the previous programs that were done, and the existing spaces, so that we start to see, what all the spaces are, how big they are today, how big they should be in the future. And John, do you want to add anything on the programming side? I know there's a little bit you're doing in the background.
Yeah, you pretty much summed it up pretty good, Tony. We go through the questionnaire. We try to extract all the information that the chief gives us. We input that into a program. Like you said, we're going to compare it with the previous programs and make sure that we're not making them any bigger, any smaller. And then we're going to try to right size for today's needs and future needs. So, and then we would go over a draft with the department and make sure that we're all on the same page and present it to the committee.
Yeah, and on a timing point of view, if we can get that programming document back, we should be able to start to see a draft at our July 12th meeting, somewhere in that range, start to get that square footage assembled in an order which folks can understand what makes up all the square footage. And you've heard us talk about gross square footage, net square footage. Good morning, Annie. And that will give you a fully detailed list of rooms, everything from closets to conference spaces, how many people are in each space. And as part of that space program, it's helpful that we have a room-by-room description, because in there we'll also outline it needs a conference table, it needs 6 chairs, it needs network, it needs audio, video, all of the specialty things that would go into the room, not just the name of the room and the size, right? So it becomes the check sheet for going back later when the plans are more fully developed. You're able to go back and look and say, okay, in that particular room, did we pick up the AV equipment? Do we have the meeting? Is there a screen, in the ceiling, on the wall? Is there a projector? But it really gives you a full outline of what happens in every room, so that should we get to a point of needing to reduce square footage and we reduce a particular room, there might be some AV multi-purpose feature of that room that then needs to be incorporated somewhere else. So we may lose a room, but we may not lose the requirements or the purpose of that room. And Chief walked us through the current facility, where just about every space is a multi-purpose space serving 3-4 different facets of the police station. So we'll start with a much broader, bigger scope and space, And then we'll all, of course, have to combine that down and make those multi-purpose spaces available. So that should get us out to about mid-July.
I hope to have the program questionnaire submitted by the end of the day today.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Before we move on, are there any questions or comments from the committee? Perfect. All right. Moving on to the next agenda item is the materials that I sent to everybody last night, the scope and timeline. All of this information are things that we've already heard or seen, and some of it was lifted from what Tony had sent us earlier in the week, but wanted to put it all together in a concise fashion and make sure that we're all aligned. So we look at the purpose slide. This is really lifted from the original document on the purpose of the committee, and it's to evaluate plans, data, and information compiled by the consultants for the purpose of advising the selectmen on the preferred path to take in improving the facilities to be used by the police and dispatchers. The committee will also assist the selectmen in efforts to educate the public on the various options available. Then across the bottom, I just added those 4 options that we've talked about for potential upgrades for the current police facilities. Renovate the existing space, demo the existing space and rebuild, new build on an alternate site, or purchase and renovate another building. When we look at the scope, what is in scope is reviewing and approving the space program. So when we start to look at that in mid-July, we'll work closely with Chief Cobb and certainly LaValle Brunzinger. Part of the program will have the things that we have to do for code. I would hope that we obviously will review those, but not go down rabbit holes on things that are code related, and really spend the bulk of our time on everything else. And, you know, we'll see what everything else is in the next few weeks. We will help to choose the test fit scenario. So as you remember, LaValle Brunzinger, as part of our contract with them, will do 2 test fits. One for the Bucher building. Again, that is not Whipple Hall, but just the Bucher building, and then one for an additional site elsewhere. And then TBD, there's going to be a lot, I think, that's going to come out of the program that we received back from LaValle Brunzinger, and a lot of this will be flushed out when we see that. So I don't want anybody to look at this and say, well, gosh, this isn't really robust. I think we will get there. Let's just see what that program says. And then not in scope. So site selection for a potential new facility, that is really the onus of the select board, and potentially, I don't know if it's the Building and Facilities Committee or if it's just you guys, but either way, not necessarily in scope for us. I think what could be in scope is the selection for test fit, but we'll talk about that further down the agenda. The regional dispatch discussion, I think this has come up in a few meetings on whether we should or shouldn't be, but that is not in scope for this committee. I think we are a regional dispatch, and I'm not sure that that's on the table for discussion, certainly not for our committee, but at all, at least not at this time. And then once we see that program, and, you know, as Tony just mentioned, we'll see room size and AV and chairs. What's not in scope is us looking at what paint colors, what brand of furniture do we want, what are the chairs? That is not in scope. Is there anything, select board members, that I am missing from this that should be added? Okay. All right. Any questions or comments on scope from the committee? Yeah.
Yes, I thought.
Turn that bad boy on. There you go.
Sorry, in Concord, red means on. I thought that the reuse of Bucher was also not in our scope.
That is a good, I will add that. All right. And the last slide is the timeline. So I think we all saw Tony sent out a timeline yesterday or the day before. What I did was take that and really just condense it a bit into some big buckets of, you know, beginning and end. So we kicked off in May. Obviously, we are ending at some point in September with a recommendation to the select board. Is there a date that we need to have that? Is it September 30th, sometime in September? Doesn't matter.
Really up to you as you get closer.
All
Ready
right.
on the 1st of September, we'll be ready, but I think more likely toward the end of the month.
Perfect, okay. And then the other big milestones in between are obviously the kickoff with LaValle Brenzinger, the program delivery, the concept and test fits, and then the things that happen in between. Any questions, or did this make sense? Perfect. All right. We will get the materials up on the website as well for the community to see. One of the things, again, that I just mentioned was this conversation around whether this committee would have input into site selection for the test fit, and wanted to ask the select board. I think ultimately it is their decision, but obviously offering up our assistance in whether or not you guys could benefit from our help with a selection for the test fit.
Yes, and as you mentioned yesterday at the town gathering, Ashley, there's been a lot of work done over the last several years by the Building Facilities Committee subcommittee, and then Tony prepared a matrix and so on. And just to refresh everybody's memory, the last time we talked about this, there were 3 properties from that matrix that which stood out. One was at 198 Main Street, and the other 2 were the properties owned by New London Place, formerly known as the Bewley properties. I think, as everybody now knows, the Bewley, so-called Bewley or New London Place property on County Road has been sold.
Yep.
And that's off the table. So the selectmen are going to go come back together on the 10th of July at our next meeting, either reaffirm that the remaining 2 properties are the ones we want to consider more, or whether we want to go back and look at the matrix or any other work that was done by the previous committee. But we don't want to sort of start from scratch. We've pretty well combed the town for potential sites. But obviously, anytime somebody wants to come to a selectmen's meeting and participate in the discussion there, they're welcome. So I would hope that anybody who wants to participate in that discussion comes on July 10th. And also, you mentioned the regional dispatch discussion. I believe Chief Cobb's going to come on the 10th and give us a 50-year history of how we got to where we are with regional dispatch. So I think both those should be interesting topics on the 10th.
Yeah.
Really slide heavy.
Jeez. Somebody call Jim Perkins.
She needs something to do after she gets through filling out these forms today.
Right? Oh, I think she's busy.
So that should
Okay.
That date, sounds like it's going to be before your next meeting, so that should be help
Okay.
you all a lot in terms of informing any questions you have on those 2 issues.
Yep. Any questions from the committee on the test fit? Okay. Tony, over to you to walk us through the meeting minutes that you sent out the other day. I know that there are some discussion points there, so I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. I picked up, Phil was not at the meeting, so in the distribution attendees list, that was through an email from Phil, just so everybody's clear. The list says attendees. Those that were actually present on that meeting minutes are generally bold italics. If somebody's not in the meeting but on the list, they are not bold in italics. They're normal font. So just a little clarity there. Picked up a couple edits, I think, from Bruce had one and another. So those are now adopted in the minutes. With regard to items that come on and off the minutes, they're generally issued once. So we've issued the meeting minutes as draft. Those items get issued once that are designated as closed. Items that are closed will come off this week. So if they were in last week's or our last meeting notes, and you're looking for them this week and they were closed, you probably won't see them because we'll eliminate them off this week's meeting minutes. With regard to the new business items, those go on in numerical order, kind of as an identifier. They also have the date associated with the meeting of when they were new business. Then those items, as in this week's meeting, will get transferred from new business of 614 into either the programming category, the communications category, existing building category, but so they get placed into a different category so that it opens up this week or this meeting date for new business. Does that kind of make sense to folks? Great. Couple of things that I've heard here that would lead me to close some of those items is the discussion of regional dispatch. If that's something that, Ashley, in your document is not part of this future discussion, I can note that, close it, drop it from future so that it's not on our meeting minutes. And I would use your slide of what's in the mission of the committee and what's not in the commission to close out some of those items. Is that agreeable to the group?
Yeah, I think so. Is there a lot of heads nodding?
Great. We covered programming update. You've done a good job reformatting and graphically presenting our schedule, so we know where we are in moving forward in the schedule, unless anybody has questions specifically to schedule. The only thing I would say is, and I'll speak for a second for John, and then he can weigh in. We're going to have a team come up and do some review, structural, mechanical, electrical, of the existing facility, just to kind of find out, what has deteriorated or what improvements have been done to the building since the previous studies. When we all go up for a site visit in mid-July, kind of that period, end of July, we want to be able to identify those sites. So I'm happy to hear that, Select Board is going to reaffirm sites. We don't need to go on any property. It's more of the drive-by that I have done with the chief and Adam earlier. But just get the LBA team to put their eyes on those sites.
Tony,
In order to make,
Tony, can I just interrupt you just for a quick second? Because I
Yep.
do think there are some questions on the site visit that's on that timeline. I think it's on there for August 6th. But I think some clarity on whether, and maybe you just said it, but are we actually going to see the site that is selected for the test fit? Or what does that mean? What does site visit mean? And who is
So-
going to see the site? Is it us? Is it LaValle Brenzinger?
what I would be looking to do is take the reaffirming discussion from the Select Board. They reaffirm the top 3 sites that were in our previous matrix are now still the top 2
Yep.
with the county road site not being available anymore. If this group wanted to review that and recommend to the Select Board adding a 3rd site from that matrix, that would be entirely up to you. You all can go drive by those sites and probably know them much better than I and John do, just from being in town. The drive-by, if you will, that I would do would be to take John, Bob, maybe someone from their site team on a drive-by to say, that's the site. Look at it. Look at the
Okay.
trees. Look at the traffic. We're not going on site. We're not doing any subsurface investigation. It's really just giving them the assessor's map or a Google image of that site to say, here's the 3 possibilities. Ultimately, this group says, take site X as a test fit site. John and Bob are probably going to need 4 to 6 weeks to do those 2 test fits, one being the existing site, one being an alternative site, and working out, does parking fit? Does it allow for vehicular and pedestrian access? Does it allow for safe segregation of those parking, vehicular, and pedestrian issues that the chief alluded to earlier are occurring on the existing site? So we should be if we're looking for a September conclusion, we really need to be looking early August, end of July to say, hey guys, here's the site that we're honing in on as an alternative site for the test fit. So I don't see that in our current timeline, but I wanted to let the committee know where that fell in our process.
Okay. Is that clear for folks? Okay, great. Thank you for the clarification.
John, I gave you 6 weeks, but if you can do it in 4, even better.
Absolutely.
I'd like 8, but we're not going there. That's all I have from the meeting minutes. Happy to open it up to your discussions or whatever is next.
Ashley, if I may, I
Yeah.
want to let you know I have to leave. So.
Thank you. I think Phil had a comment or question.
Yeah, just related to both the program and this whole site selection, I assume that the program statement includes exterior components, parking and whatnot? Okay.
Correct.
Good question.
Yeah,
And that document
typically,
will, sorry, go ahead, John.
typically in our program, we cover everything from visitor parking, secure parking, officer vehicles, impound, any sort of site information that's required so that we can use this information on any site. It's not one particular site, it's one program that works for the town.
Great. Any other questions? All right, new business. Tony, do you have anything for new business?
None from my end. Moving on with the program as we've discussed. Certainly happy to hear that the select board is going to discuss alternative and prospective sites. And we are carrying on to mid-July.
Great. Any new business from the committee or from the select board?
Are you planning to announce your new email address that you've created?
Great segue. Yes, I think in our last meeting or the meeting before, we had asked if there could be an email address set up for community members to submit questions, comments, suggestions. That email address has been created, which is fantastic. It is currently on the sub-page of the town website for the Police Facility Advisory Committee. It is police.project@newlondon.nh.gov. Great. But it is on that website. And yesterday at the town gathering, we talked a little bit about that. We highly encourage community members to submit questions, comments, suggestions. And the way that it will work is when those emails are received, they will be added to the website anonymously, so the sender's name will not be included, but that is also where the response will be. So if folks are emailing in questions, unlikely to get a response to that email, but you will see the response to your question on the website. Is that fair?
I think there'll be an auto response.
Within
5 days, you should see a response on the website.
Perfect. So there'll be an auto response on the email that will say within 5 days you'll see a response to your question on the website. So that's very exciting. And that email is going to a few different people. So three different people will have access to that. Perfect. Okay. Yes, Malika.
As we get questions from community members ourselves, would you prefer us to push them to that, or would you prefer us to send that email in their project one?
Yeah, I would say to either direct them or just you yourself email saying, hey, I received this question.
Okay.
And so it's all being funneled into one place.
Great.
Perfect. All right. Also, at yesterday's town gathering, there was a request if the committee would ever entertain moving the meeting so that other community members could join, and I think the suggestions were a Saturday morning or a Monday night. So wanted to pose that here and see if folks had thoughts.
I have thoughts.
Yes, Malika.
I'm not in favor of doing that for several reasons. This day and time seemed to work well for the committee. Obviously, we're taping this, recording this, I guess is what it's called now, so people can watch.
Sure. Any other Yeah, Phil.
So at our first meeting, we set a schedule of the first and third Fridays of the month. That was after some discussion because I have a standing conflict with a state board meeting on the second Friday. Tony has now rearranged the second meeting to land on second Fridays. So I just need to know whether this committee wants to primarily stick with the first and third Friday or not, because I can't partake in a committee when I can't be at the meetings. So I think that just needs to go into the discussion. I tend to agree
Sure.
with you on Saturdays, but
Sure.
whatever. But
Okay. Any other thoughts on the moving of the meeting? All in agreement? Yes, Mr. Hollinger.
No, I was just going to recommend we stay with first and third.
First and third. Great. Everyone in agreement? Okay. First and third. These are recorded. I will email the email with this question, and if we can put the answer on the website, that would be great.
About July 5th, because that's the first Friday.
Oh,
So actually, the first Friday is the 5th of July, right after the long weekend. Are you
Sure
actually
is.
going to meet then? That will be before the selectmen have met.
yep.
I understand but Phil's conflicts. I've heard that for long periods of time.
Yep.
So, when do you, I'd be ashamed if he missed that discussion after the selectmen's meeting.
Yeah, I think, let me just look at a calendar here. I'm in favor, since it is next Friday, that we skip next Friday and then do the 19th, which is the third Friday. And then it would be Friday, August 2nd. Friday, August 2nd, and then there are 5 Fridays in August, so it would be the 16th. What I would suggest is, because there are 3 Fridays in August, and because that's likely when we will be in really the meat of our work, is that we hold the 30th, and if folks are available and we feel like we need that time, that we have it on the calendar. If possible, yes.
I work for myself, so I don't get holidays, but that's Labor Day weekend. So.
It is. And then we would go into, that would be the 30th, into September 13th and September 27th. Oh, no, sorry. September 6th? 6th and the 20th of September. So really trying to keep to that. First and third, August with the outlier of there being 5 Fridays. If we need the 30th, we can use it. Okay, great.
So just for clarification, we are not meeting on the 5th, or we are meeting on the 5th?
We are not going to meet next
Okay.
Friday.
Thank you.
Great. All right. I think that's all we had on the agenda. Tony, is there anything else from you before we open it up for community questions?
No, nothing from me. That's great. I'll get these dates into the meeting notes for everyone to follow up on, and I'll put a hold the date on 8:30.
Perfect. All right. Opening it up to our guests. I know that there are some folks who do have questions, so come on up.
I'm Bob Bowers. I'm a resident of New London. I talked to Ashley because I had some questions after the presentation, which was excellent, by the way, concise, precise, inclusive, and thank you to all of you for participating. Those questions that I had seemed to have disappeared as I came in because I thought this committee had been presented with a sheet of 10 possible sites and that you would be actually looking at various sites, but apparently the selectmen will be making that decision. Just to run through it, the thoughts that occurred to me were to be sure that when you look at the present site, you include the abutting property as is set forth in the charge of the selectmen to do so, the so-called McEnroe property when you try to site a new building. The other main point was that the Broom property was recommended by the building, not recommended, was proposed by the building committee, the committee Chief Cobb chaired. And I think that deserves a good look by this committee, in part because it fulfills option 4. Am I doing that? It fills option 4 of looking at a building for renovation purposes. And as an aside, I've mentioned to the selectmen a bit ago, and they've now had council look at it and agree it could be done. Bar Harbor has a piece of property for sale that abuts that piece. And if you bought the two together, you would have a greatly expanded ability to look at siting for a police station. And apparently the selectmen of the sites they've picked have decided not to go along with the site review committee's proposal. And that may be off the table. But I would like this committee to think about it. It seems like a very good site. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowers. Yeah, absolutely. Come on up.
Dorothy Dogan, Main Street, New London. One of the things when you get more information on this, can you have a meeting at night, like what we used to do at the other meetings you'd have at night, so people can be informed so that it doesn't go to when you have the big meeting, everybody's going, well, I didn't get a chance to talk. Even though people send things in, I think face-to-face, as you people are representing this town, and I think it's a matter of the people who are going to be paying the bill for this get a say, and it's just not one committee saying, okay, we're going to build a $4 million property and we're going to spend all this money. It's a matter of, it's an impact to everybody. It's not just, it's just a matter if we can have, say, once you start getting all the information from the survey and you start proposing it's going to be A, B, or C, then have like a one-night meeting so that, like what you normally do is you put in the Kearsarge shopper and everybody comes with, wanting to talk. And I just think it's going to help buffer the actual end meeting like the one we had last year. Everybody was all upset because it was kind of misrepresented. They're going to be doing this. It was almost like nobody had a say in it. It was just going to happen. And I realize we do need different facilities, or if, again, you're at least proposing looking at the redo of what's currently here, and then looking at different sites. So I'm just saying that to make the people of this town who are going to be footing the bill get more impact, just so that we can ask questions.
I just want to make sure that I understand. So our charge here for this committee is that in September, we make a proposal to the select board for something to be a warrant on next spring's town meeting voting. So just so I'm clear, what you are asking for is that before we make a recommendation to the select board, that we have a meeting with the community to talk through what our options or what our thought is?
I think it might, at least we'll feel involved. So that it's not just, like if they come up and say, okay, this is, the 4 different things to happen, and then you're going to vote on it, give people a chance to absorb it before you put it to a vote at a meeting, and I just think just because you don't want to, you're talking about, oh, well, I can't do, it has to be during the day. And people at the meeting yesterday said, can't you just have it at night once in a while so people can actually hear it and be able to question versus sending in an email and then going, I wonder what's really going on. I think this is more of an open forum for, like for me, just to come, because I take notes and absorb everything. But I just think that more, it doesn't have to be every meeting, but just maybe one, just like as a test run, just so people understand exactly why you're proposing A, B, and C.
So I think we're only going to be proposing one thing, not 3 different things, is my understanding. I would actually look to the select board. I don't have experience with this to know if that's something that we've done previously with other committees.
Respond. I think that's on us, and I think it's fair what you're asking. We've talked a lot about modes of communication and how we can reach out in the best way to the community, because what we did see in the last town meeting was a lot of questions, a lot of misunderstanding.
Yes.
So that's a constant battle. We talk to Will Kidder about it all the time as well. What's the best way to post the town meeting so we can get more people to attend, right? So we can get that full voice from the community. So we've also talked to Tony about it and his experience working with other towns.
Okay.
What are the best modes of communication? So we're constantly thinking about that. I really appreciate your feedback. I think we can go back and discuss it and talk about the possibility of when they're ready to make their recommendation, what forum do we use for that here? I agree. Just so you're aware and everybody's aware, we think about that all the time. Because when we're in the Hannaford and we have somebody come up to us and say, ask questions about certain things, and it's like, this is what we live every day. For me anyway, it's a big deal to try to find the way to touch as many people as possible.
Yeah, and I think it would be, I know for me, I'd appreciate it, and I know you guys are trying to take on this bear and take care of it, but just a matter of, as somebody who lives in the town and has been here for years, it's just one of these things that helps, I think, make us more united, so that there's not a bunch of people coming with swords going, I heard you bought this, and it isn't true.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea. I do, my recommendation would be that if we do that we just have very, very clear roles and responsibilities of who has decision-making rights, who has input rights, and who is there to ask questions and, might not actually have a say in things. But, in my experience, making sure that those roles are very clearly outlined for folks is helpful. Yeah. Any other questions?
Ashley?
Yeah.
Tony here.
Yeah.
I think I caught Dorothy as the first name, but I didn't catch the last name.
Not a loud voice. Dogan. D-O-G-A-N.
Dogan.
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 Like dog. D-O-G-A-N.
D-O-G-A-N.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry to make you come back.
John Ellis, come on up.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions I wanted to ask. One, Chief, are you going to put a sign up to protect the children, or put no walk-through or something, so this doesn't happen again? Because it sounds like
I'm
that's
sorry, can I get the gentleman's name?
John Ellis.
John Ellis is his name.
John Ellis, thank you.
Yep. I would love to put up a sign that everybody would follow, John, but people don't follow the speed limit signs in town sometimes, so I think it's very difficult to do. We did put up a sign that says no U-turn, and people still do U-turns in the driveway, so we could sign it to pieces, but I don't think it's going to be effective, unfortunately. It's just a cut-through that people use, and it's dangerous.
And
I can't regulate that kind of behavior. We can't be out there 24/7.
But you won't put a sign up to see if it would even work then, or?
What would you propose the sign might say?
I'm asking you because you said there was an issue with the children, so.
There are,
no
every day.
walk-through.
There's every day.
I see signs that say no walk-through, et cetera, but.
I could reach out to the day camp and ask them to use the sidewalk.
I mean, I would think that would be.
Sure, I could do
wise
that.
to protect the kids from.
But again,
whatever the danger
the
is.
overuse of, signs are only as effective for the people that choose
No,
to follow them.
I understand, but something is better than nothing, it seems like, because you made the issue that the kids are coming through there and you got.
It's a
unloading
constant
their-
issue. It's always a concern. It's always a
At
concern for
least
me.
You could say, well, we have a sign, you don't read it, and
But to what end, I guess, if they didn't read the sign and they're still walking through,
I know, I'm just saying.
it's not an easy solution
I
at all.
understand that, but at least if there's a sign, maybe if we save one child from whatever this threat is back there from them unloading their kids, it's something. But I can't answer. You're the expert in protecting the kids, et cetera. The other thing was this Roto-Rooter plumbing when is that going to be fixed? 'Cause that's pretty
I would
clear.
love to know the answer to that.
Who's in charge of that?
Well, Bob Harrington is overseeing the project, and Roto-Rooter has been in, and they've been taking up the concrete, sawing the concrete. They've replaced some pipes already, but it's still a clogging issue, I guess, and then there's air bubbles that come up. So our answer now is that if it clogs again, we don't do anything with it, and we call Roto-Rooter in, and if that happens on a Saturday morning at 2 a.m., when someone uses the bathroom, then we wait until Roto-Rooter can come and remedy the issue, because the theory behind that is that Roto-Rooter needs to come in and see the actual problem in order to continue to diagnose it.
Right. I think it was a month ago you went through and had the cement taken up and then cement put back.
We still only have half a stairwell
Correct.
back there.
Is the plumbing working now?
No.
So it's still not
It's
working?
a daily thing. Either the toilet flushes or it doesn't, and I can't predict when it will or won't.
No, I understand it. Nobody can predict that.
We would love to not have to deal with this issue or have sewage coming up through our pipes. It's a disgusting condition to ask people to work in.
And what sites are now presently on the list that we're looking at?
Is that on the website? I thought it was. Yeah, so on the Police Facility Advisory Committee subpage of the town website, I think all documents have been uploaded, even from prior committees. So you can find that spreadsheet there.
Again, I'm sorry?
It's on the town website.
Yep.
There is a subpage for the Police Facility Advisory Committee,
Okay.
and that's where the agendas are and all the
Right.
studies.
I know where that is.
Yep.
This email address that you're going to be providing, will all residents have access to the answers also?
All questions and answers will be posted on the website.
At that email, so we can just open that and read the question and the answer?
Nope, so you'll email the question in, we will then copy that question, paste it onto the town website under the Police Facility Advisory Board, or Committee page with the answer to that question underneath it.
And that will take somewhere between 1 and 5 days?
Yeah, I think 5 days is what you said, the auto response? 5 days, within 5 days.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Mr. Epstein.
Rich Epstein, resident. I guess I have a comment and maybe a question. So I seen that the dispatch center is not in scope. Maybe at the risk of stating the obvious, that doesn't mean it won't be in scope for the public. So I think that will be a big challenge if you want this to go forward will ultimately be something that the town votes on, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's a discussion point at all, is my understanding, but would obviously lean on our select board for clarity.
Rich, as I said at our meeting on the 10th of July, Chief Cobb will be reviewing the history of the dispatch activity, and you'll hear the selectmen talk about why, at least I only speak for myself, why I continue to support that as an activity that the town supports. But we'll see what happens with my colleagues and what the chief has to say on the 10th of July.
Okay, we'll be anxious to hear, but I'm not sure if you'll you're convinced that that will just convince everybody that the dispatch center should not be in scope. But that's just my opinion.
Never convince all the people all the time.
I think it's going to be an important issue. Second, completely different, and I forget if it was mentioned in selectmen meetings or one of these meetings, but I thought somebody had asked at a previous meeting, what will ultimately be on the warrant? Like, will it just be a yes or no to a proposal, or will it be choose,
Way too soon to decide what's going to be on the warrant that gets put together next January.
Well, I guess that's what, then I was confused. I heard it was now this committee can only propose one thing.
Well, that's my assumption, is that we would come out of this with a single recommendation to the select board, but again, we haven't seen the programs, so I think, as Bill said, we're probably a ways away, but in my mind, and I'm seeing a lot of heads shaking here, that we would probably come out with a single recommendation. Maybe there are two, as we see what the test fits that La Valley Brensinger creates. But I personally don't envision a world where we've got 4 or 5 different options on a warrant for people to choose from.
I just think that's a slight contradiction if you're going to.
We are so early in
Okay,
this.
but then
We
you
haven't
don't
seen
yet
any.
know whether or not it will just be one.
We will see what happens over the next 2 months.
Okay.
And when we see the program, and as we actually dig into the work.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Sorry, can I get the gentleman's name again?
Rich Epstein, resident.
Thank you, Rich.
Any other questions or comments? All right, Tony, I think we're good.
I think
Oh,
we are
wait.
good. I
Phil
will
has-
save the recording and send
Committee
this
members,
along.
sorry, I apologize. Yes, Phil.
I just wanted to put an issue in front of the committee that was the subject of much discussion back with the Building and Facilities Committee. It's going to come up. I know it informs many of these issues, and that's the potential future growth of the town. We went through many discussions on predictions. We couldn't even get agreement on the current population of the town. There were numbers floating all over the place. But the future growth, and we hear talk about 30 or 50-year lifespans for a building, in my humble opinion, are clear as mud. The regional planning people can't get their arms around it. We may or may not have had a COVID spike. It may or may not have reset. We look at a house here and a house there, then we look at building permits. But in general, the current growth of the town has not been astronomical. If you overlay that with the demographics and the fact that, speaking for myself, I'm a day older than I was yesterday, I have no idea where this town is going to be in 10, 20, 30 years. I just put that in front of us because there will be discussions with the program, with the site, and with almost everything else as how much of this is providing for future growth.
Anything else from the committee? All right. That's it, Tony.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day. Bye.